What is this new devilry?
Welcome everyone to Fabler's Fifth. I'm Fabler, and I'd like to share with you some stories and some ways to play on your own. In this series, I'll introduce you to some D&D 5e content of my own creation, and discuss with you how you can use it in your own games. Today we'll be going over the Oath of Devilry, a Paladin subclass for those who prefer a more sinister take on their divine warriors. As a quick note before we begin, a link to the D&D Beyond description of this subclass can be found below for any who wish to follow along or read for themselves. Now, let us begin, as all good things do, in a tavern. The crackling snaps of a fireplace accompanies the snores of a plastered bartender as he slumps next to your bottle of shared whiskey. Other than the occasional cricket, they are the only sounds that fill this otherwise silent tavern. It's the earliest hours of the morning, long before the sun plans to crest above the horizon to usher in a new day. A quiet tavern, in a quiet town settled along the Merchants' Road between the coastal docks and the kingdom's capital. It's a place of small fame, small fortune, and an even smaller populace. Only the unremarkable call it home, and despite the adventurous glory of a past life, you find yourself content in it. No one makes trouble. No lives are taken by anything other than time, and no machinations of gold or magic find root here. The cool air of the surrounding grass plains breezes through the tavern's open windows, caressing your alcohol-laden skin. It's a soft comfort, one that you've felt 1,000 times sat in this very stool, evening after evening. Stomp. 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 The sounds of approaching footsteps, armored no less, break the serenity of your stupor. Old instincts kicking in, you fold your arms in front of you on the bar and reach a hand into your sleeve, gripping the dagger you keep strapped to your forearm. As the front door opens, the cool, calming air wafting through the tavern begins to heat to uncomfortable temperatures. Though you dare not turn your head to look, you feel a pair of eyes bore into your very soul as the resounding footsteps grow louder and louder. The air becomes like that of an oven's, blistering your skin as a figure clad head to toe in black plate mail takes a seat next to you and rests a charred sword against the bar. "Lovely evening, isn't it?" it asks in a voice like smoldering charcoals. You part your lips to reply, only to have the unbearable air fill your lungs, drying any semblance of moisture that once called your mouth home. Left with only choking words and a tightening grip on your dagger to reply, the figure continues to speak. "It reminds me of another, so long ago, in which a little farmhand stood at a crossroads and offered anything, to live a more remarkable life. I hear it was the most earnest of pleas." Eyes widening in realization, you draw your dagger, only to have it glow red hot as your seared hand drops it, sending it clattering down the figure's armor before it is crushed beneath a boot of solid black iron. Before you can complete the incantation of a follow-up spell, the bottle of whiskey next to you shatters and lacerates your face as its spilled contents begin to boil on the bar, sending both you and the bartender into fits of screaming pain. Screams which only grow louder as both of you begin to be cooked to death beneath a pair of devilish eyes glowing like hot coals from within the figure's helmet. The last thing you see as your skin bursts and blackens is the figure pouring itself a fresh drink from behind the bar, the tavern itself combusting into flames. Many unremarkable nights had passed through that quiet little town, as the figure stepped out of the billowing fire and mounted an infernal horse. It wondered if this would go down as one of them. Welcome back. I hope your trip to the tavern wasn't too crispy for your liking. You no doubt have some questions. Let's crack open the secrets of this oath and see if we can find ourselves some answers. The Oath of Devilry calls to paladins who desire raw, untamed power. Only the most selfish of paladins follow this path, as it goes hand in hand with allegiance to an Archduke of Hell, or perhaps even Asmodeus himself. You will most often find these paladins enforcing devil contracts and punishing those who do not abide by them, all while serving as an instrument of destruction against demons of the abyss. Some who take this oath do so out of desperation, swearing themselves to the nine hells in exchange for the power to shape their own destinies and break the chains that bind them. Others may even desire to fight fire with fire, evil with evil, using their unholy prowess to fight the very fiends that empowered them in the first place, taking its tenet to ascend the hierarchy quite literally. Regardless of motive, the Oath of Devilry is indeed a sinister calling. However, paramount among this oath's tenets is keeping true to one's agreements. After all, what is a devil without their due? So yes, as you can see, the easiest fit for this subclass is a lawful evil character who simply pledged themselves to a powerful devil. If you want an easy comparison, this kind of character would be like a Darth Vader type figure, whereas the devil they serve would take on a more Palpatine kind of role. The devil makes a lot of contracts, some of the contracts have names on them that don't fulfill their end of the bargain, and the devil sends out their paladin to enforce those contracts' terms. That being said, most people don't want to play an evil character, so you could make an Oath of Devilry paladin that has a more nuanced take on the concept. For example, perhaps you yourself have entered into a contract to gain the power you need to defend your homeland from a demonic invasion. Perhaps you were enslaved and pleaded for the power to break your shackles, both physical and metaphorical, and doing so, you invoked the bidding of a devil. Maybe you were once a holy warrior, but a loved one got on a devil's bad side, and you took on the Oath of Devilry as a bargain to save their soul. Just because your character's powers come from a place of evil, doesn't mean they themselves are. Next, we move on to the Tenants of Devilry. A paladin who takes this oath has the Tenants of Devilry seared onto their body in Infernal. Paladins who break the tenets of this oath must enter into a devil's contract to retake it, at which point the tenets seared on your body morph into the details of the contract. As before, your character doesn't have to be in a devil's contract to take this oath, but if they break the tenets of the oath, then they will need to strike up a deal to restore its abilities. After all, devils don't give out anything for free. As for the tenets themselves, they are as follows. Tenet 1. Collect what is due. Contracts are to be upheld exactly as written. Never give your word. Always have it in writing. Show no mercy to those who break their end of a deal. Now, this can be applied in a bunch of different ways. If the party accepts a quest, the Oath of Devilry Paladin will probably insist that there be a written contract. So if the exact payment isn't given for the exact task written in the quest, they will probably have some kind of problem. That being said, don't be that person at the table. No one likes the Edgelord player killing the poor farmer because he couldn't reward them exactly what was promised for rescuing his prize goat from the troll den. Instead, maybe visit the farmer and have a nice, plain, terrifying discussion about why it's not a good idea to shortchange adventurers. Or, if you're a good aligned character, maybe pay the rest of the party out of your own pocket to make up the difference. That way, the tenet is technically upheld, and you don't have to feel evil doing it. Tenet 2. Ascend the hierarchy. Know your betters and supplant them if the opportunity presents itself. Reach as high as you can in service to the nine hells. Again, don't be that guy. If you're a knight and a fellow party member is the knight captain, don't kill and supplant them. Even if the party is cool with you being an evil character, don't do it without enthusiastic permission from the rest of the table. That being said, if your character is a knight and the leader of your order is an evil NPC who murdered the king, then by all means, take him out in his sleep. Do evil unto evil, and generally speaking, your fellow players will be alright with it. Tenet 3. Thwart the demons. Spawn of the Abyss are not to be bargained or treated with. Eliminate any you find with impunity. This one's simple. There are two types of fiends in D&D, devils from the Nine Hells and demons from the Abyss. Since the former is lawful evil and the latter is chaotic evil, they tend to absolutely despise each other. So if you catch wind of a demon, destroy it, or at least work to inhibit it in some form or fashion. Simple as that. Remember, above all else, you're an agent of a particular devil. Each devil has their own goals, personalities, and motivations. Find or create one whose methods and goals don't conflict with the party, and things should be a lot smoother. Now, for the actual mechanics of this subclass, breaking it down by Paladin level, we gain the following spells and features. Level 3. First off, we gain the ability to cast Comprehend Languages and Disguise Self as Paladin spells. These spells are always prepared for us, but they don't count against our number of spells prepared for the day. As an Oath of Devilry Paladin, it's basically required that we be able to read any contract put before us. And it's also handy if those we're sent to punish don't know who we are until it's too late. Next, our Divine Smite class feature, the bread and butter of Paladins, is getting changed into Infernal Smite. This means that our Divine Smite will now deal fire damage instead of radiant, and will do an additional 1d8 damage to celestials and demons instead of fiends and undead. Now, that is a little bit of a nerf overall. However, the features and spells that we'll get in subsequent levels should make up for that slight Divine Smite nerf. Finally, at level 3, we gain 2 Channel Divinity options, Invoke Torment and Infuse Hellfire. Invoke Torment allows us to sear the soul of a creature we see within 30 feet of us as an action. If that creature fails a Constitution saving throw against our spell save DC, they suffer fire damage equal to our Paladin level and are stunned until the end of our next turn due to the overwhelming pain. Now, due to their nature of not having souls, constructs are immune to this feature, so keep that in mind. Channel Divinity Infuse Hellfire, on the other hand, allows us to inject our veins with the flames of Avernus as an action. For the next minute, our attacks, spells, and class features ignore resistance to fire damage, and we gain advantage on intimidation checks. Next, level 5. We gain access to the Heat Metal and Hold Person spells, which count as Paladin spells for us that are always prepared. Our marks tend to always run from us once they figure out who we represent, so with the Hold Person spell, that tends to be a dead end for them. And for those who have the guts to brandish weapons against us, Heat Metal will render those just as useless. Level 7. Here, we gain the Aura of Ruination. So long as we are conscious, we emit a 10-foot aura centered on ourselves that's hot enough to blister the air and boil liquids. All creatures of our choice within the aura gain resistance to fire and cold damage, while all others must make a Constitution saving throw against our spell save DC at the start of each of their turns, suffering fire damage equal to our Paladin level upon a failure. Any creature who succeeds this saving throw becomes immune to the effect for 24 hours, however. So, effectively, anyone who gets too close to us will just start burning alive, unless we like them, in which case they'll become resistant to extreme temperatures. It should be noted that we can control the heat of the aura, so we don't have to burn down every single wooden building we step in. Unless your party finds that kind of thing fun, in which case, knock yourself out. Level 9. Why not actually instill the fear of God in someone with the fear spell? And for those who insist upon a verbal contract, we gain the tongues spell, so we can make one in any language. As before, both of these spells count as Paladin spells, and they are always prepared for us. Level 13. As a warrior of darkness and fire, we're going to put the emphasis on both with the Shadow of Moil and Wall of Fire spells that we gain here. Now we can be a walking, talking, smiting Balrog. Except this time the Fellowship isn't going to get away so easily when we throw up a wall of fire to cut them off from that pesky Bridge of Khazad-dûm. Level 15. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, is it not? Well, like it or not, as a 15th level Oath of Devilry Paladin, our exploits have caught the attention of Asmodeus. As such, he can now see through our eyes whenever he so chooses, and when he does, we gain True Sight out to a range of 30 feet. Now, having passive True Sight even at this level can be a tad bit overpowered, so if your DM calls for it, you can swap it out with the Warlock's Devil's Sight invocation instead, which grants 120-foot dark vision that can see through magical darkness. That being said, the true sight is only in effect when Asmodeus is actively looking through your eyes. So the DM can use it as a tool of suspense as well. Level 17. Our final 2 Oath of Devilry spells. Why not end things off with the Contact Other Plane spell, just in case we need to make an emergency phone call to our devilish master. And if that isn't enough, we also gain the Infernal Calling spell to summon a devil of our choice to our side, provided they're CR6 or lower. Level 20. Finally, our capstone ability. As an action, once per long rest, we can call upon the power of Perdition to transform ourselves into the D&D version of Ghost Rider for 1 minute. While in this state, we gain immunity to fire damage, can reroll any 1s and 2s when calculating the fire damage we deal, and any creature we reduce to 0 hit points with fire damage is reduced to ash. That's not all though, for we also gain the ability to inhale a creature's soul as a reaction when we slay them. When we do so, we regain a spell slot equal to the level or CR of the slain creature. It should be noted, however, that we cannot regain a spell slot higher than 5th level, so slaying a CR 13 Archmage and consuming their soul will restore a single 5th level spell slot, whereas a CR 2 Direwolf would restore a 2nd level spell slot, so on and so forth. So there you have it, all the subclass features and spells. But how about we take it a step further? As a Paladin, we gain access to the Find Greater Steed spell at level 13. So, as an optional feature, if you really wanted to complete the whole Ghost Rider motif, you could summon a Devil's Ride with it. This is the motorcycle-like Infernal War Machine from Descent into Avernus. Now, if the Devil's Ride is a little too on the nose for you, you could consider summoning a Nightmare instead. However, a Nightmare is slightly more powerful than all of the other mount options listed in the spell, by 1 CR. So naturally, discuss this with your DM beforehand. Now, as the final part of this presentation, I will offer some quick insights on how you can make an Oath of Devilry character and some of the official 5e adventure modules. Small spoiler warnings ahead for each. Starting with Out of the Abyss, your character could be a male drow who was a warrior for House Malarn. Seeking to escape a life of servitude, he was imprisoned for reaching out to Levistus, desperate to break free of the oppressive matriarchy that ruled over him. He was captured for his insolence, and only when the adventure begins does Levistus hear his plea. Next, in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, your character could be a human relative and servant of the Cassalanters, acting as their enforcer and debt collector, all while plotting their demise so you may ascend the hierarchy and take what is theirs. Finally, for Descent into Avernus, perhaps your character was an Aasimar Paladin of Elturel, whose family was captured by devils just before the city's fall. In exchange for swearing yourself to their service, the devils released one of your children and dragged the other down to Avernus with them, to be held as leverage over you. And there we have it, the Oath of Devilry Paladin. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope it brings a lot of fun to your table. If you would like to support me as a content creator, I do have a self-published sci-fi fantasy novel for sale on Amazon called Terratopia, the link for which can be found below. I would recommend the paperback version over the Kindle one, as for the life of me, I could not figure out how to convert it into proper Kindle format with page numbers. I also have a Patreon in which you can find 5e character options, magic items, and monster stat blocks that are not available anywhere else for as little as $1 a month. And if none of that interests you, clicking the like button on this video would certainly go a long way too, and be greatly appreciated. As one final note, the art and music credits used in this presentation can be found at the bottom of the video description. Again, thank you for watching, and tune in next time where we will explore the magic of the cosmos with the Black Star Sorcerer. This has been your humble Fabler, signing off.